Imagine your dog turning to you and saying your name. Not barking it, saying it. A real word with real meaning behind it. It sounds absurd until you look closer, because dogs are already talking to us, just not in the way we expect. They have been trying for thousands of years, and recently a few of them started pressing buttons. What happened next changed the entire question. The real question is not whether dogs can speak our language. It is whether they already have something to say and whether we have ever truly been listening. Because for most of history, we assumed dogs were just reacting. A wag here, a whine there, a bark when the door knocked. Instinct, we told ourselves, nothing more. And yet anyone who has lived with a dog knows the feeling. That uncanny moment when they look at you and you swear they understood. Not the words exactly, but the meaning underneath them. The disappointment in your voice. The excitement you tried to hide. The fact that you said the word that 3 rooms away and they vanished under the bed. So what is actually going on inside that head? Are dogs decoding language? Or just are they decoding us? And if they can already understand so much, what would it take for them to speak back to us? To answer that, we have to start with a Border Collie named Chaser, who quietly rewrote what we thought possible. Chaser lived in South Carolina with a retired psychology professor named John Pilley. Over years of patient training, Pilley taught Chaser the names of more than 1,000 individual toys. Not categories, individual names. She could fetch Inky from a pile of identical-looking plush animals. She could learn a new toy's name on the first try. She could even infer by elimination that an unfamiliar word must belong to the one unfamiliar object in the room. That last skill is something human toddlers do, and until Chaser, many scientists assumed it was uniquely ours. Chaser was not magic. She was a window into how much linguistic machinery a dog brain can actually run when someone bothers to teach it properly. Denafting birds is one thing, producing them is something else entirely, and this is where dog anatomy gets in the way. A dog's vocal tract is built for barks, growls, whines, and howls. Their tongue, lips, and throat simply cannot shape the precise vowels and consonants human speech depends on. Even if a dog wanted to say hello, the physical instrument is wrong for the job. That is why, for decades, the dream of a talking dog felt impossible. Until someone removed the mouth from the equation entirely. Enter Stella, a Catahoula Blue Heeler mix in California, and her human, a speech-language pathologist named Christina Hunger. Hunger worked with toddlers who could not yet speak, helping them communicate through soundboards, devices with buttons that play recorded words. One day she looked at her puppy and thought, why not her too? She built Stella a mat, covered in pawable buttons. Each button played a single recorded word. Outside, play, water, love you. At first, Stella pressed them randomly, then something quietly shifted. Stella began pressing outside when she wanted to go out. She pressed water when her bowl was empty. She started stringing 2 buttons together, then 3, then sometimes 4 in a row. Wat, brate, lay, outside. It was not poetry, but it was intent, a dog choosing symbols in order to express something inside her own head. And then came Bunny. Bunny is a sheepadoodle who became famous online for her soundboard, designed by her owner, Alexis Devine, in collaboration with researchers. Bunny has dozens of buttons, and millions of people have watched her use them. Looking, she presses ouch and then paw after stepping on something sharp. She presses where and mom when her owner is out of sight. She has on occasion pressed combinations that look unsettlingly like questions about herself and her own existence. Now, here is where we have to be honest with ourselves. Scientists studying these dogs at the University of California, San Diego, are still cautious. They are running careful experiments to figure out what is real communication and what might be coincidence or clever owner cueing. But early results are surprising even the skeptics. Some of these dogs do appear to use buttons in context, on purpose, in patterns that go beyond random pressing. Which brings us to a strange and beautiful possibility worth sitting with. Dogs may not need to learn our language at all. They may just need the right tools to express their own thoughts. Pause for a moment because I want to ask you something honest. Have you ever caught your dog doing something that felt impossible to explain as pure instinct? A look, a choice, a moment where you genuinely felt like they were trying to tell you something specific? I would love to read about it down in the comments below this video. Your story might be the one that makes someone else realize their dog has been talking to them all along. Now let us keep going, because the next part is where it gets really interesting. Because if you zoom out from buttons and toys, you start to notice something remarkable. Dogs have always been linguistically gifted. They just speak in a language we forgot to study properly. Tail position, ear angle, eye softness, the exact pitch of a whine. Researchers have identified at least a dozen distinct bark types, each used in different contexts and situations. A bark at a stranger sounds different from a bark at a squirrel, which sounds different from a bark of loneliness. Other dogs hear the difference instantly. We mostly do not. Then there is the famous puppy dog eyes muscle, and the story behind it is incredible. A 2019 study found that dogs, unlike wolves, have evolved a small facial muscle that lets them raise their inner eyebrows. It makes their eyes look bigger, sadder, more infant-like, and almost impossible for us to resist. That muscle did not exist by accident. It evolved during thousands of years of living beside us because the dogs who could make that face were the ones we fed, kept, and bred. In other words, dogs literally evolved a new way to talk to humans, with their faces. So when we ask, could dogs learn to talk? We are actually asking the wrong question. They have been talking the whole time. The real question is whether we are willing to meet them halfway with the vocabulary they can press, point at, or perform. And that is where the future of all this gets genuinely fascinating. Imagine soundboards getting smarter with sensors that track which buttons a dog presses most, in what order, at what specific time of day. Imagine machine learning models trained on thousands of these dogs, looking for patterns no single human could ever see alone. Imagine a system that could translate not the buttons, but the barks themselves. Tools already exist that attempt to classify dog vocalizations by emotion. They are crude today, but they are improving fast and improving in interesting directions. Now picture a collar that listens, learns your specific dog, and quietly tells you what is happening inside. She is anxious, he is bored, they want to go for a walk right now. That is not speech in the human sense, but it is conversation, and it is closer than most people realize. Of course, there are limits we should be honest about. A dog will probably never debate philosophy with you over breakfast. Their brains are not wired for abstract grammar, recursive sentences, or imagined futures the way ours are. They live beautifully and entirely in the present moment. But communication is not only grammar. It is the act of one mind reaching another and being understood across the gap. By that definition, dogs already qualify, and the technology is only sharpening the signal between us. There is something deeply humbling in all of this. For centuries, we wondered if animals had inner lives at all. We argued about whether they felt pain, whether they dreamed, whether they thought their own private thoughts. We assumed silence meant emptiness inside. It turns out silence just meant we had never handed them a microphone. When Stella pressed "love you" without being prompted, when Bunny pressed "help" after getting her paw stuck, when Chaser correctly fetched a toy she had never seen before, something quietly enormous was happening in those rooms. Another species was telling us it was home, and that it had been home all along. So could dogs learn to actually talk one day? Maybe not the way we picture it, with full sentences and small talk and strong opinions about the weather, but in the way that truly matters, with intention, with meaning, with a mind on the other end of the line. The answer is already yes. We just have to keep listening and keep building tools that let them answer back. If this video gave you a new way of looking at the dog curled up near you right now, please drop a like. It genuinely helps the channel grow more than you would think. Subscribe if you want more stories about how animals think, feel, and quietly understand more than we give them credit for. And tell me in the comments if your dog had a soundboard tomorrow morning, what is the first word you think they would press for you? In the next video, we are diving into something even stranger and more personal, what your dog actually sees when they look directly at your face. You will never look at them quite the same way again. I will see you there.